Hi, and welcome to Paxton Packing's Food Safety Video Training Series. My name is Melanie Kyle. I'm the QA Manager at Paxton Packing. In our last video, we covered the employee health policy. Today, we're going to focus on the hygiene policy, and you'll be able to see how these two policies are interrelated. Hygiene training is a two-part video series covering good manufacturing practices that are the pillars of food safety, namely good hygiene. This first video is going to give us the scientific background necessary to understand contamination and focus on personal cleanliness, dress code, and personal effects. And the next video will start off with hand washing. Okay, let's get started. It's important to understand what the potential hazards are when it comes to food, especially in a food manufacturing environment. When you know how food can become contaminated, you can take steps to prevent that from happening. Foodborne illness and its business-destroying cousin, a foodborne illness outbreak, are caused by food contamination. Food contamination refers to when something gets into food that shouldn't be there, making the food unsafe to eat. While there are many food safety hazards that can cause contamination, most fall into one of three categories: biological, physical, or chemical. In many cases, a single hazard can introduce more than one type of contamination to food. For example, a Band-Aid may have blood and germs on it that would be biological contamination, but it also might have some antibiotic cream, which could be chemical contamination. And it's a physical contaminant because it's something physical that should not be in food. We're going to start by talking about biological contamination. Employees are sources of harmful microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, or parasites that can contaminate food. This is because healthy people are covered in microorganisms, especially bacteria, some of which live on the body as part of the microbiome, and some of which are picked up by touching contaminated surfaces. If good hygiene practices are not followed, infections can be transmitted by these microorganisms to the consumer. Bacteria like Staphylococcus aureus are found on the hair, skin, and mouth in the nose and throat of most healthy people. Over 50% of healthy food handlers have these disease-causing agents on their body that can be transmitted to food. Some of these bacteria on our bodies are harmless, but others are pathogenic, meaning they can make people very ill or even kill them. If a food handler transfers this bacteria to food, it can cause foodborne illness. Thousands of people die each year from preventable foodborne illnesses. Over 250 foodborne diseases have been identified. We don't need to know about all of these sicknesses. We just need to know that without good hygiene, they are easily transmitted from a food production employee to food. The most common foodborne illnesses, known as the Big Six, are hepatitis A, E. coli, norovirus, salmonella, salmonella typhi, and shigella. We introduced the HENS acronym in the health policy training to help you remember that these illnesses must be reported to a manager and that you need to get a doctor's permission to return to work if you've been diagnosed with any of them. While naturally occurring bacteria is on our bodies, our immune system is keeping it under control. Once it is transferred to food, it can grow unchecked and cause foodborne illnesses. You can spread bacteria and viruses to food and other people even if you don't have symptoms. Scratching your scalp, running your fingers through your hair, or touching a pimple can cause the transmission of pathogenic microorganisms to food. A cough or a sneeze can transmit thousands of microorganisms that can cause disease. The fecal-oral route is the most common way foodborne illness-causing contamination is spread. Fecal-oral means the primary source of contamination is human or animal feces. Essentially, this means that somehow poop gets into food and makes people sick.
And it's a lot easier for this to happen than you may think. Our digestive systems contain over 2.2 pounds of bacteria, some of which is shed each time a person uses the bathroom. This bacteria is mostly helpful while kept in balance by our immune systems inside our intestines, but can be pathogenic if it contaminates food and is ingested. Flushing a toilet can volatilize bacteria to the air, where it can float around on tiny water droplets and deposit on surfaces, like the flush handle, the faucet, and even clothing. Every time a toilet is flushed with the lid up, a fine mist containing bacteria, such as E. coli and Staphylococcus, is spread over an area of 20 square feet. The area around sinks in public bathrooms is 90% covered in such bacteria.
The paths of fecal contamination are really complex, and they're invisible. It's not as simple as getting poop on your hands and then touching food. Unhygienic practices can spread fecal contamination to the hands, to water, to equipment, or pests like cockroaches, flies, or rodents. Contamination can then be quickly spread to everyday objects, production supplies like containers, boxes, gloves, utensils, and food contact surfaces, which can then spread fecal contamination to finished product that could reach a customer and make them sick. An example of one of these paths could be an overflowing toilet where the mess gets cleaned up with a mop. And maybe that mop isn't stored correctly and bacteria is allowed to grow in it. Later, that mop is used to clean up a mess on the floor where some boxes are placed. If somebody picks up one of those boxes with their gloves and then later uses the same gloves to handle product or food contact surfaces, you can see how fecal contamination can be spread to finished product.
Another extremely common fecal-oral route of contamination starts with your cell phone. Over 88% of smartphone users say they use their smartphone while on the toilet. While those users may wash their hands after they finish their business, 0% of them report washing their cell phone. That sets up the stage for fecal-oral contamination. If you touch your cell phone with food contact gloves, or if you touch something like a box with your bare hands, you can spread that contamination after you've used your cell phone, and somebody later may transfer that to food. Or, for example, if you pull your cell phone out of your pocket while you're wearing your coat, you can spread that contamination to your coat. So, how do we prevent biological contamination from hitchhiking along these complex paths, making its way to food and potentially to customers? With good hygiene. And the pillars of good hygiene are personal cleanliness, dress code policies, personal effect policies, hand washing, proper glove use, and behavioral policies.
Personal cleanliness is about how you take care of your body and your clothing. In order to be a food production worker, you must make a commitment to shower or bathe daily, practice dental hygiene, wear clean, freshly laundered clothing to work, keep your fingernails short and clean, shave or keep your beard neatly trimmed, restrain long hair, and avoid strong scents, but we do want you to wear deodorant. The rationale behind requiring a daily shower or bath is that it helps to remove bacteria from your body that could be transferred to food. Remember, healthy humans are covered in bacteria. Food production employees must brush teeth before work. This helps to reduce that naturally occurring population of bacteria in your mouth and wash it away. Bacteria that could otherwise be easily transferred by talking, coughing, sneezing, eating or drinking to your hands, to food contact surfaces, or directly to food. Brushing your teeth before work may also help improve your interpersonal relationships with your coworkers. Food production employees must wear clean, freshly laundered clothing to work. Our clothes can harbor bacteria from our everyday activities. Do not wear the clothing to work that you wore to clean up the yard, to take the trash out, or to play with your animals. This clothing could have bacteria that could be easily transferred to food contact surfaces, your work coat, your hands, or food. Food production employees must keep their fingernails short and clean. Long fingernails can trap the bacteria and viruses that cause foodborne illness. Bacteria like Salmonella, E. coli, viruses like norovirus and hepatitis, and yeast and fungus. A study in San Francisco found that 100% of workers with long nails had yeast and bacteria trapped under their nails. Of the workers who were surveyed with short nails, only 18% of workers had those same organisms trapped under their nails. Keeping your fingernails short and clean helps to reduce the amount of bacteria and viruses trapped under your nails. Bacteria and viruses that can be transferred to your hands, to gloves, to surfaces, and food. Food employees must keep hair clean and under control. Human hair is a physical as well as a biological contaminant because it can lead to the growth of microorganisms in food. The oil, sweat, and residue of hair treatment chemicals, as well as dyes or any other organic matter that may be sticking to the hair, can become a breeding ground for pathogens. Please come to work with clean hair, properly restrained. For long hair, low buns and ponytails work the best with our hair nets. Facial hair must be shaved or kept neatly trimmed and covered. Long beards must somehow be restrained to fit under the beard nets. If you can pinch your facial hair between two fingers, you'll need to wear a hair net or a beard net. Keeping your hair clean and under control helps to reduce the amount of bacteria on your hair that can be transferred to your hands, clothing, surfaces, or food. Now that we've discussed personal cleanliness, we need to discuss the dress code, or what you can wear to work. Food production employees at Paxton Packing must wear long pants. These pants cannot have holes or frays, and no sweatpants are allowed. Shoes must be closed-toed, and footwear must be kept clean and free of dirt and accumulated food particles on both the top and bottom of the shoes. Tank tops are not allowed.
Our dress code prohibits clothing with sequins, beads, glitter, fringes, or buttons above the waist. The dress code also prohibits nail polish and fake nails, as well as fake eyelashes. The dress code prohibits all jewelry with the exception of a single solid wedding band without stones or etchings. Jewelry worn on hands and wrists can collect dirt and food particles. These conditions provide an excellent breeding ground for bacteria and may result in the inadvertent contamination of food. Jewelry can also lead to physical contamination. Paxton Packing requires the use of a hair and/or a beard net whenever in production areas. This hair and beard net must be put on first before a white or blue coat. White coats are to be worn in finished product production only, and they must be worn when handling product. Blue coats are to be worn in raw room production only, and they also must be worn when handling product. If you wear a hooded sweatshirt to work, you must ensure that when you put your coat on, the hood is completely covered by the back of the coat. This is because hair or other debris, perhaps from laundering, can get trapped in the hood and fall into product, contaminating food if it's outside of that coat. So if you do wear a hooded sweatshirt, ensure that it's completely tucked in and covered by the coat, the outer coats. This completes the first part in the employee hygiene video training series. Thanks for your attention, and thanks for being part of our food safety team and helping us meet our commitment to produce safe, quality food. Please complete the quiz in the description below and then move on to Hygiene Policy Part 2.